Welcome to What's the Scenario with PLRB, where we explore claims and coverage scenarios relevant to insurance professionals. I'm Brennan McLaughlin.
I'm Mike Road.
I'm Tim Havler. And Brennan. What's the scenario?
All right. Certified insurance company aims to grow its commercial book of business, and the construction industry is booming. Little Brother Excavation and Grading is breaking into the construction industry as a subcontractor and needs an insurance policy. Seems like a perfect match. But just before the handshake, Little Brother says, "Oh, by the way, I need to provide something called a certificate of insurance to the prime contractor for my first big project." Well, they want to add Big Brother General Contracting as an additional insured. So, what issues does this create from an underwriting and claims perspective?
Cool scenario. Lots of stuff.
This actually came about from we have a new CE course, underwriting issues and insurance claims.
Okay, I'm sure I have my parties straight because if I don't draw it out on paper, I try to do it in my head and it doesn't work out as well. So who is the GC, who is the sub, and who's the insured?
So, Big Brother is a GC, Little Brother's a sub, and then the insurance company is certified insurance company.
Got it. Okay.
I always have to look these up to make sure they're not a real insurance company.
As soon as there's more than two parties involved, I'm going to diagram. It's diagram.
That's smart.
All right.
Let's say Big Brother and Little Brother. Oh, that's
Yeah. All right. So, let's start off with just talking about this whole additional insured thing. I know we've covered it before, but let's set a baseline. When it comes to a business, who do you think is typically included in the definition of an insured?
you.
Me specifically?
Oh, a you. Could be me. Could be you. Could be Tim. You.
So you being the named insured?
Oh yeah, there you go, Tim. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Well, it's a
Okay.
business though. So who is a business?
Ooh.
You know, that's the tricky part. Um,
Well, what about the employee, Brennan?
Yeah.
well, that's the tricky part because you've got employees, you've got officers, you've got directors, um, but their actions are probably going to qualify as insureds, but only when they're acting within the scope of their authority. You know, and then you've got to look at you've got the maybe individual who runs it. But is it what kind of structure is it? Is it a partnership, limited liability company? Is it a trust? That's where you want to look at the declarations and see exactly who's named there, and what that legal form is.
Good point. And then Brendan, yeah, I think employee is also, at least under a lot of commercial forms on the liability side, is defined. So then read your definitions too, because it'll go over who's an employee and it gets into stuff like volunteers and temporary workers. There's a bunch of interesting nuances there to read about. So always check out your definitions because it's a lot of fun.
All right, that's a great point.
But what about we talked about insureds. We've talked about this again, an additional insured. So what up with that? We got insureds, now we got additional insureds. Well, when's this end?
Well, so that's the whole thing. You've got, and the insurance company takes on a business. They're taking on all these different groups of people. And then you get into this whole thing with additional insureds, and they say, well, I got to add the general contractor on, and you're adding a whole other company.
Right.
So additional insureds, this comes in with an endorsement. These endorsements are available. They provide coverage to these additional insureds. They often include limits, limiting coverage to claims for vicarious liability for the named insured. They can also limit coverage in ways like limiting it to the damage arising from ongoing operations as opposed to completed projects. So we're just talking about things, once the project is over. Maybe that relationship between that sub and GC is done. Um, but so that's just we've recapped it. We've covered this elsewhere. Additional insureds. Let's hop into the situation. Um, let's say Big Brother does become additional insured. They add that endorsement, and then somebody sues them, Little Brother and Big Brother, and then Big Brother tenders their defense to the insurance company. Got a little trick question for you. Are they an insured or a claimant? Where does Big Brother fall here?
Mm, hmm. Well, as an additional insured, seems like they could at least be an insured.
Right, by definition, almost, kinda.
So what's the argument that they're a claimant as well?
Well, I think this is coming from, the aspect of how do you analyze it? How do you think about it? So the insured part, you're examining whether the insurer owes the additional insured a duty of defense and indemnification under the liability process. That's the same process you're doing for the insured, right? Anytime you get a claim, do I owe them a duty of defense? So you're thinking about the big brother same way you're thinking about the little brother. Do we owe them a defense? But there's this other layer where now we're examining whether the prime contractor's tender of defense under the indemnification provisions of the subcontract, whether that constitutes a covered claim against the named insured under under liability policy. So they're a claimant for the purposes of that analysis.
Wait, you lost
So,
me on that last sentence there. I'll go
Yeah,
through that a little bit slower.
lost me for everything, but
well, this is the analysis of whether so you're talking about the prime contractor, the big brothers, tender the defense. So they want a defense.
Right.
That's actually a claim against the named insured under the liability policy, and that can get contentious. You know, if it's accepted, hey, we're good. We're all one big happy family. If it's not accepted, that could go to become its own lawsuit. Um, so in one respect, you're thinking of them almost as a claimant. So
kinda
just
makes sense. And then, yeah, do you owe the tender, do you not? And if you don't, then it can get very complex. Yeah, good point, Brennan. Thank you. I understand better now, so thank you.
yeah. It's a very awkward. It can be an awkward situation where you've got these companies that you're gonna have a fight about whether you're gonna work together, and once that's resolved, you might be working pretty close together. So
And it's sad because you don't want to see a big brother and a little brother disputing, making claims against each other and lawsuits and yes,
yeah.
Uh, Never like it to go in the family.
right,
So Brennan, how does the certificate play into all this?
right. Certificate of insurance. What the what?
Yeah, I think that's one of the most interesting things about this scenario. So we talk about a certificate of insurance, we're talking about a piece of paper, or probably digital nowadays, but it includes the name of the insured, policy date, identification number, coverage types and limits. Now, these are all things that are in the policy, right? Um, so the question that kind of arises when you talk about a certificate of insurance is how does it interact with the policy? So what I actually want to do is add a related scenario here. Get
All
into
right.
that.
Bonus scenario.
Oh,
Woo!
bonus.
Bring it on.
Let's say that the agent tells the insurance agent that sells the policies tells the little brother that something specific is covered, like
Right.
all risks Bailey coverage for storing some big steel coils. Big brother hears about this secondhand from little brother, and they get a copy of the certificate of insurance saying that the policy provided all risk coverage. So they think it's all good. Don't request a copy of the policy. But after the loss, there's a related loss, and turns out there's an exclusion. Maybe those goods can't be stored more than 60 days, so you get nothing for it.
Ooh.
Um, so what's fair here in this situation where, hey, Big Brother heard about this secondhand, the agent said it, there was language on the certificate insurance that seemed consistent with it, but they never actually looked at the policy. Instincts on what's fair?
I think there's the
Mm,
problem is you never really read the policy because I think a certificate of insurance is just supposed to be like a document saying you have insurance. I don't think it gets into coverages and exclusions and any of that fun stuff that one would find in the policy. Maybe.
yeah, this reminds me of the parole evidence stuff too, where a court is usually just going to try to stick to what's in the policy, unless there's some evidence of, say, fraud, or there's an ambiguity in the policy terms and we need to go outside to help interpret them. But no E at the end of parole.
Oh, okay, so no crimes or
Not
criminals
that
in
parole.
there. Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know how prison's involved with this.
I don't know. I was gonna say that's another
Yeah.
side of Tim I've never seen. I didn't know he was on parole, but wow.
Well, you two are hitting the nail on the head, and in fact, insurance companies thought about this as well. And in fact, they printed right on the certificate of insurance. Usually, we're going to have a disclaimer to the effect of the certificate is issued as a matter of information only and confers no rights on the certificate holder. So that's pretty clear language. So let's add a little twist here. Um, let's say that
Bonus scenario and now a twist. My goodness.
bonus a twist on the bonus. So yeah. So let's say that you forgot to add the endorsement, actually making them an additional insured.
Ooh,
So Big Brother's holding that certificate in their hand, but if you were to look at the actual policy, there's no endorsement. How do you think that comes down in courts?
be big trouble for Big Brother.
Yeah, I don't know. I could see that one going either way.
And it does. And it does. I'll give some more example of the language. You see language like this certificate is issued as a matter of information only, confers no rights upon the certificate holder. This certificate does not amend, extend, or alter the coverage afforded by the policies. So really kind of explicit language. It's not impossible. I've seen some older cases that have applied estoppel to say, hey, this is something that the insurance company put out. But I am going to include several cases in the show notes. Many states seem to uphold the clear language certificate and treat it merely as proof of the existence of a policy.
Hmm.
The only point I'd like to circle back around to before we wrap up is something I mentioned about not just the certificate, but also the agent. We had a situation in this scenario where, the certificate was a little bit of theoretically a conflict with the policy, but also what the agent said as well. Um, how do you think that fits in?
Well, whose agent? Was it the insurance company's agent or the insured's agent or an independent actor? Do we know that?
And how much authority does the agent have to make comments about coverage?
These are the right questions to ask. Yeah, this was not a broker; it was an agent. And let's say it was an agent actually affiliated, with this company. And then you get down to what kind of authority do they have? And when you get there, you talk about actual versus apparent authority. So actual authority would be in writing. It's They cover this in the underwriting CE course that we have that this scenario is based on. Um, it's probably going to be pretty rare to find an express provision agency contract that an agent has authority to make representations on coverage. But there's also apparent authority, meaning when the agent acts in a manner that suggests they have authority, and the principal, in this case, little brother, um, and to an extent, big brother, um, if the principal also accepts that conduct, doesn't correct it, you can get into a situation. And there's even some state specific laws sometimes. Texas makes a distinction between soliciting agent and recording agent. So you got to maybe dive into exactly what the relationships are here.
Yeah, when you've got another person on our diagram.
Right.
Exactly.
And there's also insurance there for errors and omissions of agents sometimes, so you might even have some recourse if you had to pay because an agent said something that might have bound you to coverage.
Mike, did you watch this course? Because they
I've
cover
lived
that
this
too.
course, Brennan. 30 plus years of this stuff, so.
Mike wrote this course.
Right.
So is that the wrap up, Brennan? What can we then take away?
Yeah, what can we take away?
So I just want to hit that again. Check out this new CE course, underwriting issues and insurance claims. These are some excellent presenters: Sean M. O'Brien, Dickinson Bradshaw, Judy Oxner, and Chris A. Owenson, both of IMT Insurance at the time. They go through a variety of scenarios just like this, and it's really fascinating to see how claims and underwriting can interact, how the audience has takes on these issues. It's a really great course. The other takeaway, certificates of insurance typically don't create coverage. They very clearly state they confer no rights, don't amend the policy. It's going to be uphill battle there. But courts do still apply tests for fairness. If other factors come into play, you've got apparent authority, got equitable estoppel, courts can decide that enforcing contracts as written would lead to an unfair result. It's not impossible.
And Mike, where can an adjuster go to learn more?
Well, Tim, check us out, plrb.org. 2 hubs. You can look under, check out the education hub for this fabulous course that Brennan's talking about. And we also have over on the legal hub, coverage questions, case updates, case law, certificate of insurance stuff. You'll find it all at your resource, plrb.org. Oh, Brennan, can you add those to the show notes somewhere, please?
Will do. And there you'll also find a recap of the key points from this episode and links to our social media. Don't forget to subscribe and rate us, and give us a call at 630-509-8704 and leave a voicemail to share your adjuster story. We'll see you next time.
Has anybody called yet, Brennan?
Nope, I'm checking right now. Refreshing the page. Nothing yet.
Next time. Yes.
All right. We'll see you next time.
Everybody.
See ya.
The views and opinions expressed in this resource are those of the individual speaker and not necessarily those of the Property and Liability Resource Bureau, its membership, or any organization with which the presenter is employed or affiliated. The information, ideas, and opinions are presented as information only and not as legal advice or offers of representation. Individual policy language and state laws vary, and listeners should rely on guidance from their companies